I was doing my grocery shopping when I passed by my daughter's therapist office, the psychiatrist who'd been treating her since the accident left her broken. Through the glass door, I saw my son-in-law's car parked outside. I quietly stepped inside and heard his voice. I couldn't believe what he was confessing. "Thank you for being here as I shared the hardest story of my life. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you right now and what time is it? I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. My name is Philip Carson, and for 30 years I built a career reading people." Human resources director sounds mundane, but the job taught me to recognize when someone's lying, when their smile doesn't reach their eyes, when something's off. 4 years ago, I retired to a quiet life in a Portland's northwest district. The house felt too big after I lost Margaret. At 63, I found myself alone in rooms that still smelled like her perfume, still echoed with her laughter. Our daughter Emma became my anchor, calling 3 times a week, stopping by for Sunday dinners. Then came the accident. 6 months ago, a delivery truck ran a red light and slammed into Emma's car. The driver was texting. 1 second of distraction shattered my daughter's pelvis, fractured her spine, and turned our lives upside down. I'll never forget the hospital. Emily unconscious for 2 days. When she finally woke, her eyes found me first. "Dad," she whispered, and I knew we'd fight through this together. Travis was there, too. Her husband of 5 years, the personal trainer she'd met at the gym. Handsome, attentive, always saying the right things. He held her hand, never left her side those first terrible weeks. Everyone praised him. "She's so lucky to have Travis," the nurses said. I wanted to believe it, but lately, something's been gnawing at me. Emma's voice on the phone has changed. Where she used to be bright and animated, now she sounds distant, tired, like she's speaking through fog. "I'm fine, Dad," she says when I ask. "Just the medications." I know my daughter, and the woman on the phone these past few weeks isn't her. That Thursday afternoon in November, I ran errands downtown. Portland's autumn rain was relentless, the kind of persistent drizzle that seeps into your bones. I stopped at Stumptown Coffee, ordered my usual dark roast. Margaret and I used to meet there every Saturday morning. Old habits die hard. The warmth felt good. I watched people hurry past outside, umbrellas jostling against the rain. Normal life carrying on while mine felt suspended in worry I couldn't quite name. When I left, shopping bags in hand, I wasn't paying attention. My mind was on Emma, on Sunday dinner, on whether I should push harder about her health. That's when I passed Dr. Vanessa Wright's office. I'd been there once 6 weeks ago when Travis mentioned Emma was seeing a psychiatrist for the trauma. He'd explained the accident left her with anxiety. Dr. Wright specializes in that. It made sense, but as I walked past the modern glass building, something made me glance through the window. A flash of color against the gray day. There, hanging on the coat rack, was a navy blue quilted jacket with brass buttons. My breath caught. I knew that jacket. Margaret had bought it for Emma 2 months before she passed. Emma had protested it was too expensive. Margaret insisted. "I want you to have something warm," she'd said, running her fingers over the brass buttons. "Think of it as me keeping you safe." Emma wore that jacket everywhere, said it made her feel close to her mum. I stood there on the sidewalk, rain soaking through my coat, staring at that jacket through the window. Today was Thursday. Emma's appointments with Dr. Wright were Tuesdays and Fridays. Travis had told me that himself. Regular schedule, he'd said. Consistency is important. So why was Emma's jacket here on a Thursday afternoon? The rain picked up cold drops sliding down my neck. People hurried past, but I stood frozen, staring at that navy jacket. At 67, I thought my days of playing detective were over. I was wrong. I should have walked away. Should have called Emma, asked her directly why she was at Dr. Wright's office on a Thursday. Should have trusted that there was a simple explanation. But 30 years of reading people had taught me one thing. When your gut screams that something's wrong, you listen. The building's glass door gave slightly when I pushed. Unlocked. Inside, the reception area was empty. A half-eaten sandwich on the desk next to a note. Back at 1:30, the clock on the wall read 1:15. 15 minutes. I stepped inside, letting the door close softly behind me. The office smelled like lavender and something clinical underneath. Calming, professional, exactly what you'd want from a psychiatrist's office. The hallway stretched ahead, doors on either side. Most were closed, nameplates identifying other practitioners. Dr. Wright's office was at the end, the door slightly ajar. Light spilled through the gap, and I heard voices. Travis's voice. "I can't keep doing this." His tone was strained. Nothing like the calm, supportive husband I'd seen at the hospital. Every day I have to look at him and pretend, when's the money coming through? My hand froze on my shopping bag. He was talking about me. A woman's voice responded, cool and controlled. The settlement is being finalized. At 2.7 million. It should clear within 2 weeks. 2.7 million. Emma's accident settlement. The insurance company had been negotiating for months. And then Travis asked. There was an edge to his voice I'd never heard before. Impatience. Greed. Then we proceed exactly as we discussed. Dr. Wright's voice was matter of fact, like she was discussing a treatment plan, not whatever this was. Emma will need continued care, of course. The medications keep her manageable. Once the money is secured, we'll transition her to a more permanent facility. My blood went cold. What about Travis asked. He's been asking questions, calling more often. I think he's suspicious. Let him be suspicious. Dr. Wright sounded almost amused. What can he prove? We have all the documentation. The accident, the injuries, the psychiatric evaluation. Even if he suspects something, he has no legal standing. You're Emma's husband. You hold power of attorney. Power of attorney. The words hit me like a physical blow. He could still cause problems, Travis insisted. Then manage him. You've done it before. Be the concerned husband. Tell him Emma needs space, needs to focus on her recovery. If he pushes too hard, she paused. There are ways to handle difficult family members. I needed to get out. Needed to think, to plan. To my shopping bag slipped from my numb fingers. The sound of the canvas hitting the floor wasn't loud, but in the silence that followed, it might as well have been a gunshot. A jar inside shifted, rolling slightly. The voices stopped. Did you hear something? Travis's voice, sharp now. I didn't wait to hear more. I grabbed the bag and moved as quickly as my 6-7-year-old knees would allow back through the reception area toward the front door. Behind me, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Probably just the building settling, Dr. Wright said, but I heard a door open. I made it outside into the rain that was falling harder now. I forced myself to walk normally across the street to where my car was parked, even though every instinct screamed at me to run. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys twice before managing to unlock the door. Inside the car, I sat frozen, breathing hard. Rain hammered the windshield, blurring the world outside. Through the Water Street glass, I saw Travis appear in the office doorway. He stood there, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes scanning the street. Scanning for what? For whom? For me. His gaze moved slowly, methodically. When it reached my car, it seemed to pause. Even from this distance, I could feel the intensity of his stare. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. If he recognized my car, if he'd seen me, Travis said something into the phone. Then he turned and disappeared back inside. I sat there for a full 5 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I just heard. Emma, my Emma, was being drugged into compliance by her own husband and her psychiatrist. They had power of attorney. They were planning to take her money and put her in some facility. And if I got in the way, there were ways to handle me. I started the car with shaking hands and pulled out into traffic. My eyes kept darting to the rear-view mirror. The office building grew smaller behind me, but I couldn't shake the image of Travis standing in that window, phone to his ear, watching. Had he seen me? Did he know? The rain turned the city into a blur of gray and reflected light. I drove without thinking, operating on autopilot while my mind raced through what I'd overheard. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks until the money cleared. 2 weeks to save my daughter. That night, sleep was impossible. I sat in my living room. The rain finally stopped leaving. Portland wrapped in silence. On the coffee table sat a photograph in a silver frame. Margaret, Emma at 10, and me. We looked happy. We were happy. I picked up the frame. I don't know what to do. I whispered to the image of my wife. Margaret's smile offered no answers. She'd always been the decisive one. I was the observer, the one who assessed situations. But assessment meant nothing when your daughter was in danger and you had no proof. My mind kept circling back to the wedding 5 years ago. Emma radiant in her mother's dress. Travis at the altar, the devoted groom. When the minister asked who gives this woman, I'd stepped forward and placed Emma's hand in Travis's. I'd trusted him, welcomed him into our family. What kind of father hands his daughter over to a predator? I opened my laptop. The screen's glow felt harsh in the dark room, but I needed answers. I started with Vanessa Wright. Her practice website came up first. Professional hedge, attractive woman in her mid-40s, confident smile. impressive credentials, Stanford Medical School, board-certified psychiatrist, patient testimonials praising her compassionate care. But people can lie on the internet. I dug deeper. Portland Business Journal mentioned her divorce a year ago. The timeline struck me 1 year ago, around the time Travis suggested Emma see a psychiatrist. I kept searching, clicking through image results. That's when I found it. A photo from a wellness conference, fitness and mental health, an integrated approach held in Seattle. The image showed speakers on stage, audience visible in the background, and there in the third row, I saw him, Travis. I leaned closer, zooming in. There was no mistake. Travis Brennan, unmistakable even in the slightly blurry background, and next to him, leaning close, sharing what looked like a private joke, Vanessa Wright, not on stage in the audience together. My hands went cold. I checked the date stamp. 2 years ago, November. 2 years. Travis met Emma 18 months ago at the gym where he worked. It was fate, she told me, laughing. I threw out my back and he helped with my rehabilitation. But if Travis knew Vanessa Wright 2 years ago, 6 months before he even met Emma, I zoomed in further. The quality degraded, but I could still see them. See how Travis's body angled toward Wright, how her hand rested on the armrest between them, how they looked like two people who knew each other well. I sat back, the implications crashing over me. This wasn't an affair that developed after Emma's accident. They knew each other before Emma, before the marriage, before everything. Which meant Emma hadn't met Travis by chance. She'd been chosen, targeted, hunted. I did the math. The conference 2 years ago, November. Travis meets Emma 18 months ago. May 6 months of planning, 6 months to research her, position himself at the right gym, at the right time. And the accident 6 months ago, just enough time. Married to establish himself as the devoted husband, to gain trust, to get power of attorney. She never had a chance. I whispered to the empty room. He picked her out like a mark. The photo stared back at me from the screen. Travis and Vanessa Wright 2 years ago, sitting together, learning, planning, preparing for my daughter. I closed the laptop, hands shaking. Emma's entire relationship, her marriage, had been built on a lie from day one. They'd played the long game, and they'd played it perfectly until now. I didn't sleep after what I found. That photo, Travis and Dr. Wright 2 years ago, sat on my laptop screen like a smoking gun. By the time dawn broke over Portland, I'd already made my decision. Friday morning, I parked across from Dr. Wright's office on Yum Hill Street, 9 o'clock sharp. The drizzle turned the windshield into a grey blur, perfect camouflage for a man my age, trying to look inconspicuous. I'd brought a thermos of coffee and a newspaper props. Really, my eyes stayed locked on that office entrance. The first patient arrived at 9:15, a woman in her 30s, hunched against the rain. Then, a middle-aged man at 9:40. By 10, I'd counted 6 people coming and going. None of them were Emma. Travis had said she had appointments 3 times a week. Fridays at 10 o'clock. That's what he told me last month when I'd asked why I couldn't visit. It was 10:45. No Emma. I pulled out my phone and dialed Travis. It rang twice. Hey Philip. His voice was warm, easy, the perfect How are you? Good, good. Just checking in. I kept my tone light. How's Emma doing today? She's great, actually. We're at her therapy session right now. Dr. Wright's really helping her progress. My jaw clenched. I was staring right at the office. No one had gone in for the past 20 minutes. That's wonderful, I said. Tell her I called. Would you absolutely take care? Philip. He hung up. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, the lie still ringing in my ears. At 11:30, I tried Emma's cell. It rang 4 times before she picked up hello. Her voice was thick, distant, like she'd been pulled from deep water. Emma, honey, it's Dad. How are you feeling? A pause. Too long. I just woke up. The words came slow. Travis said, I have therapy, but I don't remember. I don't remember anything, Dad. My heart hammered. Emma, where are you right now? I'm home. I think everything's so foggy. The pills make me. Who are you talking to? Travis's voice, sharp and sudden in the background. It's just Dad. Give me the phone. There was a rustling sound. Then Travis's voice again, smooth and controlled. Emma, you need to rest. The medication's making you confused. And then silence. The line went dead. I sat frozen in my car, staring at the phone in my hand. My daughter's voice, lost, disoriented, scared, echoed in my head. And Travis's words, so calm, so practiced. The medication's making you confused. The rain droomed against the roof. Across the street, Dr. Wright's office door opened. A woman in a dark coat stepped out, umbrella raised. Not Emma. Never Emma. Because she wasn't in therapy. She was at home, drugged and bewildered with a man who'd been lying to both of us from the very beginning. I started the engine. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just control. This was something far worse. Her voice that night was different, clearer, more desperate. It was my daughter's voice, not the ghost she'd become. Sunday night at night, I stood at the kitchen sink, hands submerged in soapy water, watching the rain streak down the window. Portland in November meant darkness by 5 and silence by 8. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest. The phone rang. I dried my hands and checked the screen. Emma's name. My heart lurched. After Friday's call, her confused, slurred words. Travis cutting in. I'd tried reaching her twice. Both times Travis answered. Both times he'd been polite, firm, dismissive. Hello, Dad. Her voice was sharp, urgent, nothing like the fog from 2 days ago. Dad, something's wrong. I gripped the counter. Emma, honey, what is it? Are you okay? A pause, and I heard her breathe, shaky but controlled. I feel like I'm disappearing, like pieces of me are just gone. I can't remember things, Dad. Days go by, and I don't know where they went. What about the medication? I kept my voice steady, though my pulse hammered. What are they giving you? I don't know. The words came fast, now tumbling over each other. I don't even know what I'm taking. Travis gives me pills every morning and night. He says it's from Dr. Wright. But I don't remember her prescribing anything new. I don't remember much of anything anymore. My chest tightened. Emma, listen to me. We need to... It's all Travis. Her voice dropped to a whisper raw with fear. Everything. The appointments, I don't remember. The pills, the gaps in my memory. Dad, I'm scared. I think static crackled through the line. Emma, the accident. Her words were rushed, barely audible. I don't think it was. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking. Then I hit read. It rang once, twice. Travis answered. Philip. His voice was cold, flat, nothing like the warm, accommodating tone he'd used before. Emma's not feeling well tonight. The medication's making her confused. Please don't call again tonight. I need to talk to my daughter, I said, forcing steel into my voice. She needs rest. She's not thinking clearly. You'll only upset her more. Let me talk to her. Good night, Philip. The line clicked off. I stood there in the yellow glow of the kitchen light, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. The accident. I don't think it wasn't what an accident. The word sat in my mind like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward into dark, cold certainty. If the accident wasn't an accident, if Travis had known Dr. Wright for 2 years before he even met Emma, if Emma was being drugged into compliance, her memories stolen, her life controlled, then this wasn't just fraud, it was something far worse. I set the phone down on the counter. My reflection stared back at me from the rain-streaked window. An old man, alone in a quiet house, holding on to a thread of truth that no one else could see. I needed help. Real help. Someone who could do more than an aging father with nothing but suspicion and fear, but who outside the rain kept falling. And somewhere across town, my daughter was disappearing. Monday morning, 8:37. I stood at the kitchen counter staring at the coffee maker when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. Carson, a woman's voice clipped and professional. This is Detective Lisa Reeves with the Portland Police Bureau Financial Crimes Unit. I'm investigating. Dr. Vanessa Wright, and your name came up in our records. I'd like to speak with you. Would you be available to come in this morning? I was in my car 10 minutes later. The Financial Crimes Unit occupied the 3rd floor of the Central Precinct on Southwest 2nd Avenue. Detective Reeves met me in a small conference room. Fluorescent lights, white walls at tables scarred with coffee rings. She was 42, maybe 43, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Carson. She gestured to a chair. I understand Dr. Wright has been treating your daughter, Emma. I sat. She has for 6 months since the accident. Tell me about the accident. So I did. I told her everything. The truck, Emma's injuries, Travis swooping in, the perfect husband, Dr. Wright's treatment plan, the pills Emma didn't know she was taking, the foggy calls, the lapses in memory, Emma's voice on Sunday night. I feel like I'm disappearing. Detective Reeves listened without interrupting her pen, moving across a notepad in sharp, efficient strokes. When I finished, she set the pen down. "Mr. Carson," she said carefully, "I understand you're concerned about your daughter, but overprotective fathers often imagine threats that aren't there. Medication can cause confusion, especially in head injury cases. Are you sure you're not?" I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd found last Thursday, the one from the wellness conference 2 years ago. Travis in the background, Dr. Wright beside him, laughing. "This was taken 2 years before Travis met Emma," I said. "He told us he'd never heard of Dr. Wright until after the accident." He lied. Detective Reeves stared at the screen. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. She stood, walked to a filing cabinet, and pulled out a thick folder. Then she slid a photograph across the table. "We've been building a case against Dr. Wright for 3 months, she said. "In fraud, falsified medical records, suspicious billing patterns, and then this photo came up during surveillance." I looked down. Travis and Dr. Wright at a cafe, not a conference, not a professional setting. They were holding hands. The timestamp in the corner read January 14th, 2024, 10 months before the accident, 2 months after Travis met Emma. "They're not just colleagues," Detective Reeves said quietly. "They're lovers. Have been for at least 2 years. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. "Your daughter isn't the first," she continued. "We've identified a pattern. Dr. Wright finds vulnerable patients usually through personal injury cases with large settlements. Her partner, sometimes it's Travis, sometimes others, gets close to the victim, gains their trust, and once the settlement money clears, they disappear." "How many?" My voice sounded distant, hollow. "At least 5 cases we can prove, probably more." I forced myself to ask. "And the one who died?" Detective Reeves met my gaze. Her eyes were hard, but not unkind. "Her name was Linda Dawson, 48 years old. She died 14 months ago from what was ruled an accidental overdose of prescription medication. Medication prescribed by Dr. Vanessa Wright." The silence stretched between us. "Mr. Carson," she said, "I need you to understand something. If your daughter is their current target, she's in serious danger and we're running out of time." Outside, the rain hammered against the window. Inside, I sat across from a detective who just confirmed my worst nightmare. My daughter wasn't just being defrauded, she was being set up to die. Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock, my phone rang. "Mr. Carson, it's Detective Reeves. We need hard evidence, medical records, financial documents, anything that proves what they're doing. Can you get it?" "What exactly do you need?" "Proof of the medications Emma's taking, bank statements, emails, anything that shows intent." "I'll get it," I said. I knew Travis's routine. Every Tuesday afternoon, he took Emma out errands therapy, always between 3 o'clock and 4:30. That gave me 45 minutes. At 3 o'clock, I pulled up to their house on Thurman Street. I knocked, no answer. Then I used the spare key Emma had given me years ago. The house was silent. I moved fast. Kitchen first. On the counter, I found a weekly pill organizer, 7 compartments, each stuffed with capsules, blue ones, white ones, small yellow pills. I pulled out my phone and took photos. No labels, no prescription bottles, just medication with no names, no dosages. My hand shook as I moved to the home office. Travis's laptop sat open on the desk screen, still lit. I hesitated. This was a line. I crossed it. The inbox was open. I scrolled fast. Then I saw an email from VW. Subject: timeline confirmation. Everything on track. Settlement clears in 14 days. Proceed as discussed. Keep her compliant. No more phone calls to family. My stomach dropped. 14 days. I took a photo. Then another of the thread below, discussing dosage adjustments and final arrangements. I clicked over to his bank account, still logged in. Balance $3,824. I took another photo. Transaction history showed odd deposits. $12,000 in March, $8,500 in June, $17,000 in September. I was taking one last photo when I heard it. A car door outside. My blood went cold. 3:32. He was early. I shoved the phone in my pocket and moved fast, quiet toward the hallway. Keys jingling the bathroom. I slipped inside and eased the door almost shut. The front door opened. "Emma, you can sit down. I'll get you some water." Travis's voice, calm, controlled footsteps down the hallway. They stopped right outside the bathroom. The door swung open. Travis stood there staring at me, Philip, his voice was even friendly almost, but his eyes were ice. I didn't know you were here. I forced my expression into something neutral. Sorry, I had to use the restroom. Knocked, but no one answered, so I used the spare key. Travis didn't blink. Of course, no problem, but he didn't move. He just stood there blocking the doorway. You've been stopping by a lot lately. Philip, he said slowly. Everything okay? His tone was warm, concerned. His eyes told a different story. Everything's fine, I said. Just wanted to check on Emma. She's resting now. Maybe give us a call next time before you come by. It wasn't a request. Of course, I squeezed past him every nerve, screaming. Outside, I got into my car and drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking. On my phone, safely stored, were 3 photos: the pills, the email, the money, and somewhere behind me, Travis Brennan stood at his window watching. Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, we sat in a booth at a small cafe on Hawthorne, one of those quiet places with warm lighting and the smell of fresh coffee. Vincent Rogers had been my friend for 20 years. Retired detective, 65, gay-haired, sharp as ever. If anyone could make sense of what I'd found, it was him. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos, the pill organizer, the email, the bank statements. Vincent studied the pills first, zooming in on each compartment. His expression darkened. Benzodiazepines, he said, pointing to the blue capsules. Anti-anxiety meds, then the white tablets, opioid, painkillers, strong ones. Finally, the yellow pills, sleeping medication, probably Ambient or something similar. He set the phone down and looked at me. Philip, if someone's taking all of these at once, especially without knowing what they are, they'd be a walking zombie. Foggy, compliant, no memory, no will. This isn't medical treatment. This is calculated. The word hung between us like a blade. What do? I asked. You document everything. Keep records, photos, dates, times, and you stay smart. He leaned forward, his voice low. If Travis knows you're investigating, you're in danger. And so is Emma. I know, dear. Vincent's eyes narrowed. I worked a case 15 years ago. A woman, 42, married to a financial planner. She had a life insurance policy. 2 million. He started giving her sleeping pills, then painkillers. Told her doctors she was anxious, depressed. They kept prescribing. 6 months later, she overdosed. Accidental, they said. He collected the money and disappeared. My stomach twisted. What happened to him? We caught him 3 years later. He'd done it before. Vincent's jaw tightened. Philip, if this is what I think it is, your daughter doesn't have much time. I nodded, my throat dry. I'm not stopping. Vincent studied me for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. Good, but be careful. These people, they don't stop when you ask nicely. I left the cafe just after 8, the rain starting again as I walked to my car. Vincent's words echoed in my head. They don't stop when you ask nicely. I started the engine and pulled onto the road. The streets were slick, empty. Portland at night. Dark, quiet, watchful. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. A text, unknown number. I pulled over under a streetlight and opened it. Stop asking questions. Emma's health is fragile. Stress won't help her recovery. I hope you understand. The air left my lungs. I stared at the screen, reading it again and again. Stop asking questions. Travis knew. He knew I'd been in the house. Knew I was digging. And now he was warning me. No, not warning. Threatening. Emma's health is fragile. The message was clear. Keep pushing and something would happen to Emma. An accident, an overdose, a tragedy no one could prove wasn't just bad luck. I sat there in the car, rain drumming on the roof, staring at those words. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear this time, from rage. Travis thought he could intimidate me. Thought a vague threat wrapped in polite concern would make me back down. He didn't know me very well. I saved the message, screenshot, forwarded it to Detective Reeves with a single line. He knows I'm investigating. Then I put the phone down and sat in the dark watching the rain blur the windshield. Vincent was right. These people didn't stop, but neither would I. Saturday morning. 9 o'clock, my phone rang. Mr. Carson, it's Detective Reeves. I need you at the precinct now. Her voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. Not urgency, certainty. I was there in 20 minutes. Detective Reeves met me at the door of the conference room. Inside, 2 people sat at the table. A man in his early 50s, grey at the temple shoulders, slumped with a grief that hadn't faded. Beside him, a woman in her late 20s and with sharp eyes and her father's jawline. Philip Carson, Detective Reeves said. This is Michael Dawson and his daughter Jessica. Michael stood and extended his hand. His grip was firm, but his eyes, God, his eyes looked like mine must have these past few weeks. Hollowed out, haunted. Mr. Carson, he said quietly. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. We sat. Michael's wife, Linda, was a patient of Dr. Vanessa Wright. Detective Reeves began. 14 months ago, Linda died of what was ruled an accidental prescription drug overdose. Michael's jaw tightened. It wasn't an accident. Tell him, Detective Reeves said gently. Michael took a breath. Linda had a car accident 2 years ago. A drunk driver ran a red light. She survived, but she had injuries. Back, neck, chronic pain. We got a settlement. 1.8 million. Dr. Wright was recommended by Linda's attorney as a pain management specialist. I felt my stomach drop. The pattern, it was the same. 6 months after the settlement cleared, Michael continued, his voice strained. Linda died in her sleep. The coroner said it was an overdose. Ambient oxycodone Xanax. They said she must have taken too much by mistake. But Linda was careful. She never. His voice broke. Jessica reached over and put her hand on her father's arm. Then she looked at me. 2 years ago, after Mum died, I knew something was wrong. Dr. Wright closed her old practice and moved to a new office within 6 months. I broke in before she cleared out the old space. I copied everything from her computer. Detective Reeves slid a small USB drive across the table. This, she said, is what Jessica found. She opened her laptop and plugged in the drive. A spreadsheet filled the screen. 14 names, 14 rows, columns name, settlement amount, date targeted, date settled, status, notes. I leaned forward, my pulse hammering in my ears. There, in row 11 was my daughter's name, Emma Carson, 2.7 months, targeted 18 months ago, settlement pending, status active. And in the notes column, post-settlement plan, place and care facility, gradual dosage increase. I couldn't breathe. What does that mean? I asked. The part of me already knew. Gradual dosage increase. Detective Reeves's face was stone. It means they're planning to overdose her, Philip. Just like Linda. They'll make it look like an accident. Too many pills. A tragic mistake. By the time anyone suspects foul play, Travis will have control of the settlement. Emma will be gone, and Dr. Wright will have moved on to the next victim. The room spun. I scrolled up. Linda Dawson's entry was in row 4. Linda Dawson, 1.8 mounts, settled March 2023. Status deceased. Notes: accidental overdose 6 months post-settlement. 6 months. Emma's accident had been 6 months ago. The settlement was 9 days away. They've done this 13 times before, Jessica said, her voice steady but cold. Some victims survived barely. Others didn't. My mother didn't. I looked at Michael. His eyes met mine, and I saw it, the weight of knowing you were too late. The guilt of not seeing it sooner. I couldn't save Linda, he said quietly. But maybe we can save Emma. Detective Reeves closed the laptop. We have 9 days before that settlement clears. Once it does, the clock starts. And based on this pattern, Emma won't have long. I stared at the table, my hands shaking. Gradual dosage increase. They weren't just stealing from her. They were planning to kill her, and they'd done it before. What do we do? I asked, my voice raw. Detective Reeves leaned forward. We move fast. We get Emma out, and we take them down before they disappear. 9 days. That's all we had. I left the precinct just after noon on Saturday. Detective Reeves walked me to the door. We'll get arrest warrants for Travis and Dr. Wright tonight. She said, financial fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. We move tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. What if they run before then? I asked. She met my eyes. Then we go faster. But I could see it in her face. She was worried, too. I spent the afternoon at home pacing. The USB evidence was solid. 14 victims, Emma's name in the spreadsheet. The plan to overdose her. It should have been enough. But Travis wasn't stupid. If he suspected anything, he'd disappear. I tried calling Emma twice. No answer. That wasn't unusual. Travis controlled her phone, her schedule, everything. But today, it made my chest tight. At 10:45 that night, my phone rang. Emma. Dad. Her voice was quiet, confused. Sorry to call so late, but something weird is happening. I sat up. What is it? Travis came home 20 minutes ago. He's packing a suitcase. His laptop files from the office. He says he has an urgent business trip, but he's acting strange. He keeps looking at his phone, and he told me to stay in the bedroom. My blood ran cold. Emma, listen to me carefully. I'm calling the police right now. Stay on the line with me. I dialed Detective Reeves with my other phone. She answered on the first ring. Carson, Travis is fleeing. He's at the house right now, packing. Emma just called me. There was a pause. Then we're moving now. How long ago did he get there? 20 minutes. Keep Emma on the phone. Keep her away from him. We'll be there in 15. I switched back to Emma. Honey, I need you to stay in the bedroom. Lock the door if you can. I'm on my way. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? I'll explain everything. Just stay there. I was out the door in seconds. I made it to Thurman Street in 11 minutes. Travis's car was still in the driveway. A silver sedan trunk. Open engine off. Relief flooded through me. He was still here. I pulled up across the street and waited. My hands gripped the steering wheel. Every instinct screamed at me to go inside to get Emma out. But Detective Reeves had said, wait for backup. 2 minutes later, headlights appeared. 3 police cars, no sirens. They parked quickly. Officers moving with precision. Detective Reeves stepped out and motioned for me to stay in the car. I nodded, but I couldn't breathe. 4 officers approached the house, 2 at the front door, 2 moving around back. Detective Reeves knocked loud, authoritative. Travis Brennan, this is the Portland Police. Opened the door, silence. Then the sound of footsteps inside, fast, panicked, back door. One of the officers shouted. I saw Travis, just a glimpse, bolting out the side gate, a bag slung over his shoulder. 2 officers sprinted after him. 30 seconds later, I heard it. Suspect down, we have him. Detective Reeves turned and gave me a sharp nod. I got out of the car and ran to the house. Emma stood in the doorway, pale and shaking, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. When she saw me, she started crying. I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. It's over, I whispered. You're safe now. But even as I said it, Detective Reeves's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her expression darkened. She walked over to me, her voice low. Travis is in custody, but we just got word from the team at Dr. Wright's office, and she's gone. Office cleared out. Home to... She left sometime this afternoon. My stomach dropped. How long does she have? 4, maybe 5 hours head start. We've issued an APB alert at airports and border crossings. But Philip, she didn't need to finish. Dr. Vanessa Wright was gone, and she knew exactly how to disappear. Sunday morning, 7 o'clock. My phone rang while I was making coffee in Emma's kitchen. She was still asleep on the couch, exhausted from the night before. Detective Reeves's voice was tight. Philip, we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What happened? The settlement money, $2.7 million. It was transferred out 30 minutes ago. I gripped the counter. How Travis is in custody. The transfer was pre-arranged, automated. It went through before we could freeze the account. She paused. It went to the Cayman Islands first, then bounced to the Bahamas. We're working with Interpol, but these accounts are layered. It's going to take time. After everything, they'd still gotten the money. There's more, Detective Reeves said. Travis's lawyer, Danielle Warren, showed up with a restraining order against you. Cliff, you're harassing Emma. It's garbage, but it has a judge's signature. That's impossible. Emma called me. I know, which is why I'm heading to you now. Don't let Warren near Emma. Danielle Warren arrived 20 minutes later. Mid-30s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She knocked like she owned the place. I opened the door but didn't step aside. What do you want? She held up a document. Restraining order. You're required to stay at least 500 feet away from Emma Carson. Effective immediately. That's fake, I said flatly. Her smile was thin. It has a judge's signature. I suggest you comply, Mr. Carson. No. Behind her, a car pulled up. Detective Reeves stepped out with 2 officers. Miss Warren, Detective Reeves said, I need you to come with me. Danielle's smile faltered. Excuse me, you're under arrest. Conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice. We found the $50,000 wire transfer from Travis Brennan 2 weeks ago. You want to explain that? Danielle's face went white. The officer cuffed her and led her to the patrol car. Detective Reeves turned to me. The restraining order is fake. We're getting it dismissed. But Philip, the money is still moving. Cayman Bahamas, probably headed to Venezuela. Richard Palmer's filing an emergency motion to freeze the accounts globally. Interpol's on it. I looked back at Emma still sleeping inside. How much time? Hours, maybe less. 2 hours later, my phone rang again. We got her. Detective Reeves's voice was steady, almost triumphant. Dr. Vanessa Wright, Bahamas authorities arrested her at Nassau Airport 40 minutes ago. She was boarding a private jet to Venezuela. Relief flooded through me, and the money frozen. All of it. The Bohemian government's cooperating. We'll start extradition proceedings immediately. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. When will she be back? Tomorrow. Travis is already here. Wright will be extradited within 24 hours. They'll both be arraigned by Tuesday. And then Detective Reeves paused. And then we build the case. Trial starts in 6 weeks. Emma's going to have to testify. You both are. Are you ready for that? I looked at Emma, awake now, sitting up with a blanket wrapped around her. She looked fragile, but she also looked like herself again. We're ready, I said. Good, because they're not going to make this easy. I hung up and sat down next to Emma. She leaned against my shoulder. It's really over? She asked quietly. Not yet, I said, but we're going to finish it together. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was clearing. For the first time in months, I let myself believe we were going to be okay. Sunday afternoon, I took Emma straight to Providence Portland Medical Center. The doctors ran blood tests immediately. 2 hours later, Dr. Rebecca Lawson sat us down with the results. High levels of benzodiazepines, opioid painkillers, antipsychotics and sedatives. She said, these drugs should never be combined at these dosages. Emma, you're lucky to be alive. Emma stared at the paper, her eyes still glassy. Dr. Wright prescribed. Dr. Wright wasn't treating you. Dr. Lawson said gently. She was drugging you. We need to start detox immediately. Emma looked at me afraid. I took her hand. I'm not leaving. The first week was hell. Withdrawal doesn't just hurt. It dismantles you. Emma shook. She couldn't eat. Her head pounded. She'd wake up disoriented, not knowing where she was. But slowly, the fog lifted. By the second week, her eyes were clearer. That's when I told her everything. Travis and Dr. Wright, the plan, the 14 victims, Linda Dawson, who hadn't survived. Emma listened in silence, gripping the blanket. Dad, she finally said. Travis, this whole time? Yes, everything, everything. Her face crumpled, not in tears, but in something deeper. Grief for something that had never existed. How could I not have seen it? Because he's a professional. He's done this before. This isn't your fault. She nodded slowly, but I could see the weight of knowing she'd loved someone who'd been planning her death. 6 weeks passed. Emma moved back home with me. Therapy 3 times a week. Walks, cooking, small, normal things. Her memory came back in pieces. She remembered the accident. Travis at her bedside. The pills he'd give her every morning, watching her swallow them. The months after were just fog and fear. By the end of 6 weeks, Emma had recovered 70%. Dr. Lawson said, physically strong, emotionally still processing. One evening she sat across from me at the kitchen table. I want to testify, she said. Emma, you don't have to. I do. I want to face him. I want him to know I survived. There was steel in her voice now, something they hadn't been able to break. Okay, I said. Then we'll do it together. 6 weeks and 2 days after Travis's arrest, the trial began. The Multnomah County Courthouse stood gray and imposing under a pale November sky. Detective Reeves met us at the entrance. Ready? She asked. Emma nodded her hand, steady in mine. Inside courtroom 4, the room was packed. Reporters, victims, families, law enforcement. Michael and Jessica Dawson sat in the second row. Michael gave me a small nod. At the defense table sat Travis Brennan and Dr. Vanessa Wright. Travis wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored. His hair was neat. He looked like the man I'd met 5 years ago at Emma's wedding. When Emma and I walked in, he turned, his eyes locked on hers, cold, calculating. No regret, no humanity. Emma didn't look away. She held his gaze, her chin lifted, her shoulders back. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something in Travis's expression shift. He hadn't expected her to be standing. The bailiff's voice rang out. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Hernandez presiding. The trial had begun. The trial began on a cold Monday in late November. Courtroom 4 was packed. Reporters, victims, families, law enforcement. Emma sat beside me in the third row. Judge Patricia Hernandez entered. We rose. The people versus Travis Brennan and Vanessa Wright. The defendants sat at separate tables. Both wore suits. Both looked composed. When asked for their plea, they answered in turn. Not guilty, Your Honor. Not guilty, Your Honor. Assistant District Attorney Marcus Troy stood. Your Honor, members of the jury, over the next 2 weeks, the state will prove that the defendants operated a criminal enterprise spanning for years. 14 victims, $5.8 million stolen through fraud, manipulation, and attempted murder. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The evidence will show this was calculated and methodical, and it almost succeeded again. The first 3 days were evidence. Jessica Dawson presented the USB drive, a spreadsheet with 14 names, dates, amounts. The jury studied the documents projected on screen. Forensic accountants traced money wire transfers to the Cayman Islands in Bahamas. Deposits into Travis's accounts, $12,000, $17,000, always under reporting thresholds. Emails between Travis and Dr. Wright, timeline confirmed. Subject compliant. Proceed, as discussed. The text message to me, stop asking questions. Emma's health is fragile. By day 3, the defense looked rattled. Wednesday afternoon, I took the stand. The prosecutor walked me through it, overhearing Travis and Dr. Wright. My investigation. The photos, realizing Emma was targeted. Travis's attorney, Melissa Hartley, cross-examined aggressively. Mr. Carson, you broke into your daughter's home, didn't you? I used a spare key she'd given me years ago and rifled through her husband's private documents, his laptop, his bank accounts. I was trying to save her life. Or were you simply a paranoid father who couldn't accept that his daughter had moved on? The evidence speaks for itself, I said calmly. Everything I found was real. My daughter is alive because I acted. The jury looked convinced. Thursday, Michael Dawson took the stand. He looked older than 52. Grief does that. He told them about Linda, the accident, Dr. Wright's treatment, the overdose 6 months after the settlement. I thought it was an accident, he said, his voice breaking, that Linda had taken too much by mistake. But she wasn't careless. I should have seen it. I should have protected her. He covered his face. Several jurors wiped their eyes. One woman looked at Travis with open disgust. Travis sat motionless, his face portraying nothing. By Friday, the prosecution had built a wall of evidence the defense could barely see over. Judge Hernandez prepared to dismiss us for the weekend. We'll reconvene Monday at 9 a.m., and I stood to leave. Dr. Wright's attorney rose abruptly. Your Honor, before we adjourn, my client wishes to address the court. Judge Hernandez frowned. Counselor. Dr. Wright stood slowly, pale and tired. Your Honor, her attorney continued, my client wishes to change her plea. The courtroom erupted. Judge Hernandez banged her gavel. Order. I looked at Emma. Her eyes were wide. Travis turned in his seat, staring at Dr. Wright with cold fury. Miss Wright, do you understand what you're doing? Judge Hernandez asked. Wright nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Then we'll hear your plea Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. The gavel came down. The trial had just taken a turn no one expected. Arrogance is a double-edged blade. Travis wielded it like a master, never realizing the edge was turned toward his own throat. Monday morning, the courtroom was silent as Dr. Vanessa Wright stood before Judge Hernandez. Dr. Wright, the judge said, you wish to change your plea? Yes, Your Honor. Wright's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. I pled guilty. A ripple of murmurs spread through the gallery. Emma's hand tightened on mine. Assistant District Attorney David Troy stood. The state has reached an agreement with Dr. Wright in exchange for her full cooperation and testimony against Mr. Brennan. The recommended sentence will be 18 years instead of 25. I glanced at Travis. His jaw was clenched, his eyes locked on Wright with cold fury. Judge Hernandez accepted the plea. Dr. Wright, you'll testify tomorrow. Be prepared. Wright nodded. She didn't look at Travis once. Tuesday and Wednesday were a masterclass in betrayal. Dr. Wright took the stand and systematically dismantled Travis Brennan. Travis approached me 4 years ago, she said, her voice clinical detached. He had a plan. He would identify targets, people recovering from accidents, with large settlements. I would provide the medical cover, prescriptions, treatment plans, access. And how did you select victims? Troy asked. Travis did the research. He'd look for accident victims in the news, track settlement amounts, find out who their doctors were. Then he'd insert himself into their lives, build trust. By the time they came to me, they were already vulnerable. She described the process in chilling detail. The drug combinations, benzodiazepines, opioids, sedatives, designed to create dependency and confusion. The slow erosion of memory. the isolation from family. And Linda Dawson, Troy asked. Wright's expression didn't change. 6 months after her settlement cleared, Travis told me to increase her dosage gradually, make it look accidental. And did you? Yes. And she died? Yes. The courtroom was silent. What about Emma Carson? Troy continued. Same plan. The settlement was due to clear. Travis wanted her in a facility first, then we'd increase the dosage over time, make it look like complications from her injuries. I felt Emma stiffen beside me. I put my arm around her. Troy nodded. No further questions. Halfway through Wright's testimony, Travis couldn't take it anymore. He shot to his feet. You're lying, Mr. Brennan. Sit down. Judge Hernandez snapped. She's trying to save herself by blaming me. 2 bailiffs moved toward him. His lawyer, Melissa Hartley, grabbed his arm, pulling him back into his seat. One more outburst, Mr. Brennan, Judge Hernandez said coldly, and you'll be removed from this courtroom. Do you understand? Travis sat, but his hands were fists on the table. By Thursday, day 13 of the trial, Melissa Hartley was pleading with Travis not to testify. During the recess, I saw them in the hallway outside the courtroom. Her voice was low, but urgent. You don't have to do this, she said. You'll only make it worse. Travis's jaw tightened. I'm not letting that woman destroy me without saying a word. Travis, please, I'm testifying. When court reconvened, Travis stood. I'd like to testify, Your Honor. Melissa closed her eyes. Travis took the stand with the confidence of a man who thought he could talk his way out of anything. He was wrong. I didn't force anyone to do anything. He began, his voice smooth. Emma is a grown woman. She made her own choices. Troy stood for cross-examination. Mr. Brennan, you drugged Emma Carson to the point where she couldn't remember her own name. Is that correct? I was managing her medications, Travis said coolly. Someone had to. She was in pain. Managing or controlling. She needed help. Help her compliance. Travis's jaw tightened. I took care of her. And in return, Troy said, stepping closer, you expected to control her settlement money. That money should have been mine, Travis said, his voice sharp. I spent months taking care of her. I deserved compensation. The courtroom went silent. Troy let that hang in the air. You deserved compensation for taking care of your wife. Yes, the wife you were planning to kill. I never. You and Dr. Wright planned to increase her medication until she overdosed. Just like Linda Dawson, that's not you. Drugged her, isolated her, stole from her, and when the money cleared, you were going to kill her. Travis's face flushed. I gave her everything. She owed me. Several jurors recoiled. Troy stepped back. No further questions, Your Honor. There was no saving it. Travis had buried himself. When court adjourned for the day, Em and I sat in stunned silence. Did you hear him? She whispered. He actually believes he deserved it. I nodded. He just handed them the verdict. The next morning, Judge Hernandez called the court to order prosecution, she said. Your next witness. David Troy stood, his voice clear and firm. Your Honor, the state calls Emma Carson to the stand. Emma's hand tightened in mine. I looked at her and she nodded. She was ready. Emma walked to the witness stand without hesitation. No trembling, no support. 6 weeks ago, she'd been a ghost. Today she was fully, undeniably alive. She raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. David Troy approached gently. Miss Carson, can you describe what life was like under Travis Brennan's care? Emma's voice was steady. I was living in a thick fog. Days blurred together. I couldn't remember conversations, appointments. Sometimes I'd wake up and not know what day it was or what had happened the day before. And what did Mr. Brennan tell you about this? He said it was normal, part of the recovery process, that the medication made me foggy, but it would get better. She paused. It never did. It only got worse. Can you describe how that felt? Emma looked down at her hands. I was disappearing piece by piece. I'd look in the mirror and not recognize myself. I'd hear my own voice, and it sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I was there, but I wasn't, and I didn't understand why. The courtroom was silent. Miss Carson, Troy said quietly, do you know now why that was happening? Yes. Emma lifted her head. Because Travis was drugging me, controlling me, keeping me compliant so he could steal from me. Troy nodded. No further questions. Travis's lawyer declined to cross-examine. Judge Hernandez looked at Emma. Miss Carson, you may step down. But Emma didn't move. She turned in her seat and looked directly at Travis. He met her gaze, his expression cold and unreadable. I gave you my life, Emma said, her voice carrying across the courtroom. my future, everything I had. I trusted you completely, and you used that trust to steal from me, to poison me, to plan my death." She paused. The silence was absolute. "But you failed," she said. "I'm still here. I'm still standing. And you," she leaned forward slightly, "you're nothing." Travis's jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe, or fear. Then the mask slipped back into place, but it was too late. Everyone had seen it. Emma stood and walked back to her seat beside me. Her hand found mine, and I squeezed it. "I'm proud of you," I whispered. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but they weren't tears of fear. They were relief. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find the defendant, Travis Brennan, guilty on the charge of elder financial abuse, guilty on the charge of attempted murder, guilty, 18 counts." 18 times the word guilty rang through the courtroom. Travis sat motionless, his face betraying nothing. Dr. Wright, sitting at the defense table beside him, closed her eyes. When the judge dismissed the jury, the courtroom erupted. Michael Dawson covered his face with his hands. Jessica hugged her father. Detective Reeves nodded at me from across the room. Emma leaned against my shoulder and let out a long, shaking breath. "It's over," she whispered. "It's over," I agreed. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. Judge Hernandez's voice was firm and unyielding. "Mr. Brennan, you orchestrated a criminal enterprise that spanned 4 years and victimized 14 people. You manipulated, you drugged, you stole, and in at least 2 cases, you caused death. The harm you've inflicted is immeasurable." She paused. "The court sentences you to 30 years in federal prison. You will not be eligible for parole for 25 years. Travis didn't flinch. "Dr. Vanessa Wright, pursuant to your plea agreement, you were sentenced to 18 years. Wright nodded, her face pale. "Danielle Warren, you were sentenced to 8 years for conspiracy and obstruction of justice." The gavel came down. As the bailiffs moved to escort Travis out, he turned. His eyes found mine. Then Emma's. A cold smile spread across his face. "You think you won," he said, his voice low but clear. "Emma will never be the same. I destroyed her." Emma stiffened beside me, but I stood. I met his gaze calmly. "You only destroyed her trust," I said, "and I'll help her rebuild it. But you," I stepped closer, "you'll rot in that cell, and no one will remember your name." Travis's smile faltered. The bailiffs pulled him toward the door. He didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the November air was cold and clean. Emma stood beside me, her face tilted toward the pale sun. "He's wrong, you know," she said quietly. "I know I'm not destroyed. I'm still here." I put my arm round her. "You are, and you're stronger than he ever was." She nodded. I think I'm going to be okay." "I know you are." We stood there for a long moment, watching the clouds move across the sky. Justice had been served, but more importantly, Emma had survived, and that I thought was the real victory. 3 months later, Portland welcomed summer with clear skies, and for the first time in years, so did my heart. The backyard garden had become our project, Emma's idea, really. She'd mentioned it one morning over coffee, her voice tentative, but hopeful. "I think I'd like to grow something, Dad, something that takes time, something that needs care." I'd driven to the nursery that afternoon, and returned with 6 tomato plants, a bag of soil, and work gloves, still too big for her hands. Now, on a warm Saturday in early June, we knelt side by side in the dirt. Emma wore her navy jacket, despite the heat. She said it made her feel safe, and I wasn't about to argue. Her face had color again. The hollow, haunted look that had plagued her for so long was fading, replaced by something softer, something real. "Careful with the roots," I said, guiding her hands as she lowered a seedling into the hole. She smiled. "I know, Dad, you've told me 3 times already. Old habits, good habits." She patted the soil down gently, then sat back on her heels. For a moment, she just looked at me, and I saw tears gathering in her eyes. "Dad," she said quietly, "I never properly thanked you. You saved my life." I swallowed hard. "You're my daughter, Em. I would have done anything." She finished. "I know, but you actually did. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." I reached over and squeezed her hand, dirt and all. "You're here. That's all the thanks I need." Later that afternoon, I sat on the back porch with a glass of iced tea and let myself think. 67 years old. Most people my age were settling into quiet routines, golf, grandkids, early bird specials. But life had other plans. Age, I'd learned, wasn't a burden. It was a gift. 67 years had taught me to trust my gut, to recognize when something was wrong, even when everyone else said I was overreacting. It had given me the patience to watch and wait, and the stubbornness to keep pushing when walking away would have been easier. Retirement didn't mean the end. It meant I finally had time for what mattered most. My phone buzzed. Michael Dawson's name appeared on the screen. "Michael," I answered. "Philip, hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. How are you and Jessica?" "Better." "Listen, Jessica and I have been talking. We think there's a way to make sure this doesn't happen to other families. Warning signs people should know about. Red flags. We're thinking about starting a foundation. We wanted to know if you and Emma might be interested in sharing your story. When she's ready, of course." I glanced through the screen door. Emma was curled up on the couch with a book, her face peaceful. "I'll talk to her," I said, "but I think she'd want to help. She's stronger than she knows. So, are you, Philip?" That evening, I found myself standing in the hallway looking at the framed photo on the wall. Emma, at 8 years old, grinning gaptithed in a Halloween costume, my late wife's arm wrapped around her shoulders. I touched the frame gently. "We did it," I whispered. "She's going to be okay." Behind me, soft footsteps. Emma appeared at my side, her hands slipping into mine. "I love you, Dad," she said simply. "I love you, too, kiddo." She leaned her head against my shoulder, and we stood there together in the quiet. If I've learned anything from all of this, it's this. Trust your instincts. Fight for the people you love. And it's never too late not to start over, not to heal, not to build something new from the wreckage. The garden outside would take months to bear fruit, but we had time. We had each other, and that, I thought, was more than enough. Looking back at everything that happened, I realized this true story isn't just mine. It belongs to every parent, every grandparent who's ever felt that gnawing instinct that something wasn't right. These grandpa stories we tell aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to wake you up. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your daughter's voice is slurred and distant before you act. Don't brush off the red flags because confronting them feels uncomfortable. Don't let politeness or fear of overreacting stop you from protecting the people you love. Here's what I learned. Trust isn't blind. Love isn't passive. And age isn't an excuse to stop fighting. When I was at my lowest, I prayed. I asked God for wisdom, not just once, but every single night. "Show me the truth," I whispered into the darkness, and God answered not with thunder or miracles, but with clarity. He gave me the courage to see what was hidden, and the strength to act when every part of me wanted to look away. This true story taught me that God doesn't always remove our battles. He equips us to face them. He placed Detective Reeves in my path. He gave me Vincent's experience and Michael's evidence. He reminded me through Emma's resilience that healing is possible even after the deepest betrayal. So, here's my advice, straight from one of those grandpa stories you might tell your own family someday. Pay attention. Ask questions. Don't ignore your gut. And when you're afraid, lean on God. He will guide you through the fog. Fight for your family. These grandpa stories and true story lessons exist for a reason. It's never too late. Thank you.